So we talked about the base states with just one runner, but now I'm going to throw these three at you, and maybe this will lead to some discussion here. So the base states are first and third, second and third, and first and second. And the first and third base state is this very unique situation where all of a sudden now we want to coach base running with respect to the ball in the pitcher's hand. So typically when you practice base running, you're practicing the ball off the bat, how to react and what to read. But now most people realize that you can gain some things without the ball in play. That because the throws are longer, you can gain some advantages. And most people teach this, and they have their own strategies and what plays they like best. And we don't need to talk about that unless you want to ask me which ones do I like. But I will say this. One of the things that I communicate is if I put a play on as the third base coach, and I'm going to dictate action and not wait for a batted ball, I would rather the third out of the inning be made at home plate and not second base. And that's something I try to communicate. If I'm willing to take a risk to try to steal a run, I want to be bold in the direction of home plate and not second base. And sometimes that's liberating for the runners that they know how we're willing to fail. And I don't want the out to come here when we're 90 feet away and desperate times call for desperate measures and I'm trying to force action. So that's one thing I'm going to say about the first and third. The other thing is this first and third. What you want to weigh sometimes is the position of the first baseman versus an additional runner in scoring position, and this is as much strategy as base running, but make no mistake, like it plays into your consideration. So right now in that situation, your first baseman's holding the runner, and it does open up a hole. And at the lower levels, it feels like people can steal second base whenever they want. But if you have a left-handed batter and they're holding the runner, potentially that might be something you should consider or want to consider. And if it doesn't pop up into your mind, it probably should. Especially if you're trying to educate yourself as a coach. You want to debate is the extra runner in scoring position what I want? Possibly it is. Or would I rather the first baseman hold the runner and open up a big hole for potentially a lefty hitter? So that's something I want to talk about. The other thing I want to talk about is the tag ball. So the first and third tag ball is something that you have to practice. And again, if our guiding principles are get to third base with one and get to second base with two, then we want to be aware of the out count. So I'm going to present a scenario where you have a first and third, one out, okay? So this first and third, one out, it's a very delicate situation in a game oftentimes because your defense is one pitch away. If they get a double play ball, they can get out of the inning. And yet you have a runner on third base with one out. So you, the offense, should feel like you're at an advantage too. So with one out, first and third, and there's a fly ball hit, all of a sudden now all these decisions come to bear in the third base box. And your decision is, do I send him, do I not? And of course, arm strength and depth are factors that go into that decision. But I'm just going to tell you that when the ball is caught, now there are two outs, and if there are two outs, I tip the scales to being more aggressive than less. Like if there's any doubt, I'm waving that guy. So what I want to do, what we want to do, and again you have to practice this, is he's back here tagging, and this guy potentially could be tagging. Potentially, if it's routine. He should try to hustle back if it's routine. If it's not routine, he needs to be here, right? So he doesn't clog the traffic. But if it's routine, and we're talking about a routine tag ball now, so he's going to walk with the ball and then he's going to hustle back. He's going to hustle back because he knows he's not the primary concern. So he can get back. So you've got both guys tagging. And now what I want to do is I want to communicate if I'm sending him. So all I would do as a third base coach, I'm watching. And I'm going to communicate either to him or the first base coach, both of them, but maybe one's watching, maybe one's not. And all I'm going to do is just extend my right arm, which means I am going to send him. And the reason that's a big deal is now at higher level baseballs, you'll often hear coaches talk about running into an out for a run. So let's say the ball's in this position right here, and I've made my mind up. I'm willing to take the risk. I'm going. So he's tagging. He walks away. You realize that he sprints back, and now we got both guys in a position to tag. And he takes off, and he takes off. And maybe it's bang, bang at the plate. Maybe he's out, and I just shrug my shoulders, risk reward. I was willing to do it. Maybe he's safe. And if he's safe, run scored, he moves into scoring position. Now we got a runner on second base, 2 outs. But if it's going to be bang, bang, and he takes off, potentially what we also get is we also get a cut call. Cut, 2. And we can get a run down and out. We can trade an out for a run. But it all is predicated on the third base coach communicating to the trail runner, but also the first base coach as to what my intentions are with the lead runner. Because I certainly don't want him running into an out if I'm not sending him, right? So he can't be tagging and be reckless and bold if I'm not even going to send him. I mean, maybe I don't want to send him. Maybe the guy on deck is hot. Maybe that's the last thing on my mind. So we need to communicate what your intentions are in that first and third. The other thing is many times when you create a first and third at the lower levels, when arm strength isn't really great, a lot of times what you're debating with the ball in the pitcher's hand is, would I rather have a first and third or would I rather have a second and third? And, at higher levels, second and third is much more preferred than first and third to hit scores both guys. But at lower level baseballs, when you can steal runs, you might actually prefer a first and third over a second and third. And what happens at higher level baseballs, second and third scenarios create some open bases, and the intentional walk comes into play. So anytime I get a first and third as a third base coach, a lot of times what I'm considering is what is my preference here? If I've got a big bat up, right, don't just run a guy to run a guy because that's what you do first and third. If I got a big bat and I run a guy and now the other coach goes, no, just put him on. Like now all of a sudden it's blown up in my face and I lost an advantage there. So just be aware that these two scenarios should be considered oftentimes in conjunction if you're going to make decisions with balls in pitchers' hands. So here in a second and third, a lot of times what I make sure that this trail runner does is this trail runner has to know what the lead runner is doing. And again, the last time we talked about contact, on the ground, up the middle, make it go through, those are all 3 things that he needs to be told while the ball is in the pitcher's hand. What are you doing? And then when the ball gets hit, now it's up to him to make decisions. But we need this guy to know what he's doing based upon what this guy, what his directions are. So essentially my two verbal cues where I would say your reads are independent, and what that means is you're there all alone. Like, don't worry about this guy. Your reads are independent. And when this guy has a contact read, and he's just going, well, then he's allowed to be independent. Okay, so you can just act like you're there all alone. Ball's hit in front of you, don't go. Ball's hit behind you, do go. Read the fly ball as if you were there all by yourself. Independent reads. The tricky one is if you go on the ground up the middle. If that's his read, and the way we would communicate that is contact, on the ground up the middle, make it go through. The real tough one is the on the ground up the middle. So if this guy is told middle and then your first baseman is there, now this ground ball at the first baseman, he's not going, but if his reads were independent, now he's standing on third base too. So that's another reason why I hated on the ground up the middle, is because, gosh, it felt like I was making things hard for that runner at second base when maybe it didn't have to. Now that's something that at the higher levels you have to implement, like arm strength and agility, like you have to do on the ground up the middle. But at lower levels, even all the way into high school, man, I didn't like on the ground up the middle. But you have to communicate. And again, it was this direction, or this direction. Okay, so independent. Now on a string, what that means is if the infield comes in to cut that run down, now he's not independent. Now they're not, they've admitted that this guy's important. They're all going there. So if they're all going there, you're running behind him. And I would just do this. I would say you're on a string. What he does, you do. So in that situation, second and third one out to me was almost always contact at lower levels. Almost always. I don't care what the defense did, because he goes on contact. If it's a one-hopper right at the shortstop and they throw him out, he's on a string, so he's going to be standing at third base. My batter is going to be at first base. And now if I wanted to recreate a second and third, I could do it. Excuse me. If I wanted to recreate the same setting, I would do it again just one or two pitches later with the arm strength, not what it is at the higher level. So second and third one out for me was almost always contact on a string. And then every now and then the defense would do something silly, and I would be like, oh, why are you bringing your infield in this situation? And now I might have to reconsider. But that was always what I did. Okay, let's talk about first and second. So first and second is the bunt scenario. Okay, first and second is the situation that most knowledgeable coaches spend an inordinate amount of time working on the bunt. All right, move the runners over, and strategically, it is a smart baseball play to move runners from first and second to second and third, and that's a different topic altogether. But if you watch baseball practices at higher levels, or coaches that know what they're doing, they value moving runners from first and second to second and third. Okay, so we need to teach that because defenses are defending it. This whole dynamic right here. So I'll just say this: you got to see the ball down. Okay, you can't get doubled up. I mean, that's on line drives too, but I want to make sure that with the bunt, you have to see it down, because this guy they both get vulnerable. They absolutely both get vulnerable trying to anticipate the bunted ball, but the burden has to be on the batter. The batter has to execute, and these runners have to see it down. You can't try to help the bunter get it down, because that's where the throw behinds occur and the popped up double plays. Okay, with two outs, one of the things I'm constantly saying is try to beat the force. Beat the force. Okay, so beat the force obviously means he's playing behind you in this situation. So make sure you're getting that good solid secondary where on ground balls you can beat the force to second base and force a longer throw. So that's something that we communicate. And the last thing I'll say here, maybe there'll be a bunch of questions with respect, I don't know, but the other thing is, as a third base coach, anytime the first and second popped up in my mind, I was really hypersensitive to making a decision. And what I mean by making a decision is if there's a single in the outfield, I am absolutely in charge of whether he goes or not. Okay. Well, this guy coming around is going to pick me up to see what he should do. And I've been guilty of it as a younger coach, and I'm really aware of it now. Well, what I like to do is I like to make my decision as late as possible, because what if he bobbles the ball? So what I'm doing is, like, I'm waving, and then sometimes I hit the brakes. In this situation, you're really not allowed to do that, like, because you've got to tell him what he's doing so this guy can make a proper decision as quickly as possible. Again, this guy's trying to make decisions at the 15-foot mark. And if you wave, and all of a sudden shut it down right here, then there's a really good chance he's going to be in no man's land. So this first and second, you've really got to make a decision quick so this guy can make a decision. So that's just something I wanted to share there, first and second. And I know last time we talked about, one of my rules is you got to score in doubles at second base. And gosh, imagine a ball hitting the gap 365 feet away. And this runner at first base goes to this spot. The runner in the batter's boxes, he's flying out of the gate. And then you've got this guy tagging, right? Like, really give some thought to what the traffic looks like in that situation. It's a mess. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen guys hit balls off of walls and end up with a single because the lead runner is obsessed with tagging. Okay, so there's a time and a place to tag. What I believe is that time and a place is not when you see his numbers running away from you. That's not that time. And sometimes we get burned with that. Sometimes they catch the ball and we don't advance any base. That our runners retreat and it's first and second, one out, and we didn't get to third base with one out. But I can tolerate that because what I don't want to do is I don't want what happened to Cody Bellinger and Justin Turner, I believe the two were. And I think maybe there was a guy at second base too. I'm not sure. But I've seen enough baseball where I know that this guy on a bag creates conflict for the runner at first because he doesn't feel like he's like, oh, it's going to be caught, so I got to be careful. So he actually starts retreating, and potentially you get a batter passing the runner at first base. All kinds of crazy stuff. So that's how I choose to do it. I'm not saying that it's a standard operating procedure and this is what baseball protocol dictates. I'm just saying that what I have learned to live with is first and second, one out on a very, very long fly ball. And what I think I get in return is I get scoring on doubles at second base, and we are not going to get runners getting past and just advancing one base on 365-foot doubles. So that's how I choose to coach it. So I'll leave it at that, and that's the two runner base states.